Day 63 of the 100 Days of Narration Challenge, and because it's the end or the start of another week, you know what that means? It means it's another Mystery Book Challenge! Mystery Book Challenge number 9! Mystery Book Challenge number 9, and this week is going to be a theme week as well, so there'll be 7 books all related to one another. Now the challenge is, I'm not going to tell you what the book is or who the author is, and you will have to tell me what it is using private messaging over YouTube, and I will pick a name from the people who have responded correctly out of that list, and they will receive a 30-second message me. 30-second message me? No, 30-second message from me, not a 30-second message me. I don't know how that... I'm not even sure how that would work. Then they can request for whatever they would like. They can request me to speak in character voices. They can request me to speak, to read from a passage from a book or a poem. They can request for me to scream out loud for 30 seconds straight. Don't ask me to scream out loud for 30 seconds straight. That's a bit wearying on the throat. So yeah, back to this one. I've actually read something by this author previously, so it's someone who you may be very familiar with in the past. So I'm just going to read from this, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. Do I need to leave any other rules? Oh yeah, don't comment on the video with your guess. Please don't give away the answer to everybody else watching. It would be so great if you could message me with the answer instead. And also, if this book is part of the series, I'm not saying it is part of a series, but if it is part of a series, tell me which exact book it is of that series. I mean, if I was... I'm not reading the Harry Potter series, but if I were reading the Harry Potter series, I would be asking you to message me with the actual name of the book from the Harry Potter series that I'm reading from. So you just can't say, oh, it's the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. No, you have to actually tell me which one it is. And I will not accept Sorcerer's Stone as an answer, because that's not a real book. That's something that the U.S. publishers made up because they were stupid and didn't understand that Sorcerer's Stone is not a real thing, but Philosopher's Stone is. Okay. We'll get over that. Anyway, Today's book is an actual real book. See, you can hear me flipping through pages. My God, it's been such a long time since I've done this, flipping through pages. You know, just finding a random page to settle on and read. God, it's crazy. Oops, sorry, almost hit the mic there. Okay, let's read. Oh crap, this book is falling apart. That's your first clue. It's a pretty old book. I should probably get this rebound. Christ. Okay. Or get a new... I'm not even sure this book is for sale anymore. Let's read from... I'm trying to find a good place to read from, which would be good, but at the same time also good. Talky mouth beat papa beep pop. I don't know. Oh, here we go. We'll start here. We'll start from a new chapter, beginning page 51, even though that probably wouldn't mean much to you. Page 51, chapter 6, Invitation to the White House. The President of the United States will now address you, announced the loudspeaker voice in the lobby of the Space Hotel. Grandma Georgina's head peeped cautiously out from under the sheets. Grandma Josephine, I'm never sure how to pronounce that name. Josephine took her fingers out of her ears, and Grandpa George lifted his face out of his pillow. Out of the pillow. You mean he's actually going to speak to us? Whispered Charlie. Shh, said Mr. Walker. Listen. Dear friends, said the well-known presidential voice over the loudspeaker. Dear Dear friends, welcome to Space Hotel USA. Greetings to the brave astronauts from Mars and Venus.
Mars and Venus? Whispered Charlie. You mean he thinks we're from... Shh, 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 said Mr. Walker. He was doubled up with silent laughter, shaking all over and hopping from one foot to the other.
You have come a long way, the president continued, so why don't you just come, just go just a tiny bit further and pay us a visit down here on our humble little Earth. I invite all 8 of you to stay with me here in Washington as my honored guests. You could land that wonderful glass air machine of yours on the lawn in the back of the White House. We shall have the red carpet out and ready. I do hope you know enough of our language to understand me. I shall wait most anxiously for your reply.
There was a click, and the president went off the air.
What a fantastic, what a fantastic thing, whispered Grandpa Joe. The White House, Charlie. We're invited to the White House as honored guests.
Charlie caught hold of Grandpa Joe's hand, and the two of them started dancing round and round the lobby of the hotel. Mr. Wonka, still shaking with laughter, went and sat down on the bed and signaled everyone to gather round close so they could whisper without being heard by the hidden microphones.
They're scared to death, he whispered. They won't bother us any more now, so let's have that feast we were talking about, and afterward we can explore the hotel.
Aren't we going to the White House? Whispered Grandma Josephine. I want to go to the White House and stay with the president.
My dear old dotty dumpling, said Mr. Wonka, you look as much like a man from Mars as a bedbug. They'd know at once they'd been fooled. We'd be arrested before we could say, how do you do? Mr. Wonka was right. There could be no question of accepting the president's invitation, and they all knew it.
But we've got to say something to him, Charlie whispered. He must be sitting down there in the White House this very minute, waiting for an answer.
Make an excuse, said Mr. Bucket.
Tell him we're otherwise engaged, said Mrs. Bucket.
You are right, whispered Mr. Wonka.
It is rude to ignore an invitation.
He stood up and walked a few paces from the group. For a moment or two, he remained quite still, gathering his thoughts. Then, once again, Charlie saw those tiny, twinkling, smiling wrinkles around the corner of the eyes. And when he began to speak, his voice this time was like the voice of a giant, deep and devilish, very loud and very slow.
In the quelky quaggy Sogmire, in the mashy midious harsh land, at the witchy hour of gloomness, all the grobes came oozing home. You can hear them softly sliming, glissing, hissing, o'er the slubber. All those oily, boily bodies oozing onward in the gloom.
Sorry, it's the gloam. Gloam? Gloam.
In the gloam. So start to run, oh, skid and daddle, through the slubber, slush, and sossle, skip, jump, hop, and try to scaddle. All the grobes are on the roam.
In a study 240 miles below, the president turned white as the White House.
Jumping jackrabbits, he cried. I think they're after us.
Oh, please, let me blow them up,
said the ex-chief of the army. I guess if he's part of the other.
I guess if he's part of the army, it'd sound more like this. Oh, please, let me blow them up,
said the ex-chief of the army.
Silence, said Miss Tibbs. Go stand in the corner.
In the lobby of the Space Hotel, Mr. Wonka had merely paused in order to think up another verse, and he was just about to start off again when a frightful, piercing scream stopped him cold. The screamer was Grandma Josephine. Josephine. She was sitting up in bed and pointing with a shaking finger. There's no A in there, just shaking. With shaking finger at a lifts at the far end of the lobby. She screamed a second time, still pointing, and all eyes turned towards the lifts. The door of the one on the left was sliding open, and the watchers could clearly see there was something thick. Something brown, something not exactly brown, but greenish brown, something with slimy skin and large eyes, squatting inside the lift. That was pretty short. I think I'll just keep reading for a bit more. That was the entire chapter. That was the entire chapter 6, so that's another clue, I guess. These are very short chapters. Let's go to chapter 7, shall we? Chapter 7, Something Nasty in the Lifts. Josephine had stopped screaming now. She had gone rigid with shock. The rest of the group by the bed, including Charlie and Grandpa Joe, had become as still as stone. They dared not move. They dared hardly breathe. And Mr. Wonka, who had swung quickly around to look when the first scream came, was as dumbstruck as the rest. He stood motionless, gaping at the thing in the lift, his mouth slightly open, his eyes stretched wide as two wheels. What he saw, what they all saw, was this, and there's an illustration here, and I can't, I guess I can describe it. It's a blob with eyes in the lift. Ooh, that's kind of, that's a bit creepy. It looked more than anything like an enormous egg, balanced on its pointed end. It was as tall as a big boy and wider than the fattest man. The greenish-brown skin had a shiny, wettish appearance. What did I say, experience? Had a shiny, wettish appearance, and there were wrinkles in it, about 3/4 of the way up, in the widest part. There were 2 large round eyes as big as teacups. The eyes were red. No, the eyes were white. I'm reading red because that's on the second line. Let's just start from the beginning. Well, no, not from the very beginning, but from a bit further up. The greenish-brown skin had a shiny, wettish appearance, and there were wrinkles in it. About 3/4 of the way up, in the widest part, there were 2 large round eyes as big as teacups. The eyes were white, but each had a brilliant red pupil in the center. The red pupils were resting on Mr. Wonka, but now they began traveling slowly across to Charlie and Grandpa Joe and the others by the bed, settling upon them and gazing at them with a cold, malevolent stare. The eyes were everything. There were no other features, no nose or mouth or ears, but the entire egg-shaped body was itself moving very, very slightly, pulsing and bulging gently here and there, as though the skin were filled with some with some thick fluid. At this point, Charlie suddenly noticed that the next lift was coming down. The indicator numbers above the floor were flashing. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. L for lobby. There was a slight pause. The door slid open, and there, inside the second lift, was another enormous, slimy, wrinkled, greenish-brown egg with eyes. And the lifts were flashing down, all 3 of the remaining lifts. Down they came, down, down, down. And soon, at precisely the same time, they reached the lobby floor, and the doors slid open. 5 open doors now, 1 creature in each, 5 in all, and 5 pairs of eyes with brilliant red centers, all watching Mr. Wonka and watching Charlie and Grandpa Joe and the others. There were slight differences in size and shape between the 5, but all had the same greenish-brown wrinkled skin, and the skin was rippling and pulsing. For about 30 seconds, nothing happened. Nobody stirred. Nobody made a sound. The silence was terrible. So was the suspense. Charlie was so frightened he felt himself shrinking inside his skin. Then he saw the creature in the left-hand lift suddenly starting to change shape. Its body was slowly becoming longer and longer, and thinner, going up and up towards the roof of the lift, not straight up, but curving a little to the left, making a snake-like curve that was curiously graceful, up to the left, and then curling over the top to the right, and coming down again in a half circle, and then the bottom end began to grow. And then, let's try that one again. And then the bottom end began to grow up. And then the bottom end began to grow out as well, like a tail creeping along. Wow, I really can't stop burping in any recording I make these days. Creeping along the floor to the left, until at last the creature, which had originally looked like a huge egg, now looked like a long, curvy serpent standing up on its own tail. Then the one in the next lift began stretching itself in much the same way, and what a weird and oozy thing it was to watch. It was twisting itself into a shape that was a bit different from the first, balancing itself but not quite on the tip of its tail. Then the three remaining creatures began stretching themselves all at the same time, each one elongating itself slowly upward, growing taller and taller, thinner and thinner, curving and twisting, stretching and stretching, curling and bending, balancing either on the tail or on the head or both, and turning sideways now so that only one eye was visible. When they had all stopped stretching and bending, this was how they finished up. And there's an illustration here as well. The creatures are all stretched out, and they spell out the word scram. Scram! Shouted Mr. Wonka. Get out quick! People have never moved faster than Grandpa Joe and Charlie and Mr. and Mrs. Bucket at that moment. They all got behind the bed and started pushing like crazy. Mr. Wonka ran in front of them, shouting, "Scram! Scram! Scram!" And in 10 seconds flat, all of them were out of the lobby and back inside the great glass elevator. Frantically, Mr. Wonka began undoing bolts and pressing buttons. The doors of the great glass elevator snapped shut, and the whole thing leapt sideways. Leapt? I was told leaped wasn't correct. Leapt? I've always assumed that leaped was not correct. Okay. Thing leaped sideways. They were away, and of course all of them, including the three old ones in the bed, floated up again into the air. I'm not going to go into another chapter. That's good enough. Two chapters. I just went through 2 chapters, several pages to read that. Anyway, that was a book. I almost gave it away. That was a book that I read just now. If you can guess what it was, be sure to private message me over YouTube and tell me the answer. And then from all the right answers, I will pick one person using random.org. And that person will get a 30-second message from me. Do not comment on the video with your guess, please. That's not the best way to go about things. And were there any other rules that I've forgotten? Oh, what the heck. Whatever. Anyway, that was day 63, mystery book challenge day 63 of the 100 days of narration, and book number 9 of the mystery book challenge. Come back tomorrow and I will tell you of who won this particular prize, if anybody guesses. And we'll go on with the rest of this week with, you'll just have to see what this particular week is, don't you? Okay, all right. See you, everybody. Hey, you seem like a cool, wonderful, and or awesome individual with impeccable taste in voice actors. So why not follow me on Facebook or Twitter? You can keep up with the latest projects I'm in, or that my friends are in, or that you could be in, because I occasionally post links to open editions to various projects that require voice acting out there, or that nobody's in, but they're interesting projects nonetheless that you may also find interesting. Also, lots of random thoughts about whatever's on my mind at that particular moment. Usually it's about food or video games or foodie video games. Anyway, you can follow me on Facebook at OmadonVA or Twitter at Omadon. Hope to see you there.